Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving deep into a really fascinating and honestly critical technical mystery regarding Windows Labs deployments in modern enterprise environments. If you manage endpoints using Microsoft Intune, EntraID, or hybrid Active Directory setups, you're going to want to pay close attention. We're about to uncover a silent failure that could literally leave your network wide open. Here's our agenda for today. We've got Section 1, the illusion of security, Section 2, the invisible configuration conflict, Section 3, spot checking individual devices, Section 4, auditing the entire fleet, and finally, Section 5, the remediation playbook. All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the illusion of security. Succeeded doesn't mean rotating. Picture this. You open up your Intune settings catalog report, filter down to your Labs profile, and boom, every single device shows a beautiful green checkmark saying succeeded. Feels pretty great, right? Well, here is the catch. Policy applied and password rotating are absolutely not the same thing. That green checkmark, the architectural reality is it just means Intune delivered the policy to the device. It doesn't actually mean the password changed on the local administrator account. So you might have a perfectly green dashboard, but a local admin password that hasn't changed in, say, 6 months. So why does this matter so much for enterprise security? Well, a lapsed password is only actually secure if it, changes. If that rotation just silently stalls out, you're left with this massive, undetected vulnerability across your entire estate. Just think about it for a second. Departed contractors who had temporary elevated access might retain that valid access indefinitely. Or what about an old help desk chat log? Or a screenshot of a support ticket with a local admin password? That suddenly becomes a permanent backdoor for lateral movement attacks. Yikes. Moving on to Section 2, the invisible configuration conflict, two forces colliding. Let's see how this actually builds into an invisible conflict right there on your endpoints. You see, Windows Labs can be deployed in two completely valid ways. On one hand, you've got the modern cloud-native path, the Intune settings catalog, pushing configs via the CSP, which backs up to EntraID or AD. And on the other hand, there's the traditional on-prem path, using Group Policy and those built-in ADMX templates for Active Directory. Now, both of these delivery paths are fully supported and valid individually, but they become a massive headache when they overlap on hybrid or co-managed devices. When these two paths collide, they create a real ghost in the machine scenario, what we call a silent override. See, Windows Labs doesn't try to merge these settings. If a device receives both a CSP and a GPO configuration, one path just silently wins and totally overrides the other. It takes over the rotation schedule, the password length, the backup directory, the whole shebang. And the craziest part? It generates absolutely zero portal warnings or compliance flags. You have two conflicting instructions, one silent winner, and no alerts telling you it even happened. To put this into perspective, let's look at the technical reality going on directly in the local registry. We literally have two distinct locations competing for dominance here. The Intune CSP is writing to the policy manager, current device lapse key, maybe telling the device to rotate every 90 days and back up to EntraID. Meanwhile, Group Policy is writing to the Windows, current version lapse config key, demanding a 30-day rotation and an Active Directory backup. Two totally different settings sitting side by side on the exact same endpoint, but only one is authoritative. So, to sum up the architecture here, there are three main reasons your LAPS rotation might quietly stall. Number one is that CSP versus GPO deployment conflict we just talked about. Number two, a device has quietly stopped checking in. Like a VIP's laptop that's been sitting powered off in a desk drawer for 3 months. And number three, a silent policy execution failure, meaning Intune successfully delivered the policy, but the local LAPS client failed to execute it, maybe because of local SAM database permissions or something similar. Okay, Section 3, spot checking individual devices, manual verification. Before we try to scale this up, we really need to know how to spot check these failures on an individual machine. If you head over to the Microsoft EntraAdmin Center, navigate to your devices, and check out the local administrator password recovery blade, you want to zero in on the exact password expiration timestamp. If that timestamp is in the past, well, your account is currently overdue for a rotation right now, and that immediately proves your Intune succeeded status was just a mirage. Now, for those of you working with hybrid Azure AD joined devices that back up to on-prem Active Directory, you're going to be looking at the MSLOPS password expiration time attribute directly on the computer object. But watch out for this gotcha. It stores a Windows file time value. If you query this via PowerShell, remember you absolutely have to convert it using a datetime function to actually read it. Honestly, forgetting that conversion has probably caused every sysadmin watching this to pull their hair out at least once. All right, let's move on to Section 4, auditing the entire fleet. scaling the solution. Obviously, clicking through the Entra portal device just isn't going to scale for an enterprise environment. So let's look at a fleet-wide fix. There's this fantastic open-source script called Get-lapse-rotation-compliance.ps1. It leverages the Microsoft Graph PowerShell SDK to audit every single Windows device in your tenant, cross-referencing its actual lapse rotation status with its Intune check-in time. Basically, this script is your master key for finding out exactly how many of your endpoints are truly secure. Here's what a simulated output from that script looks like, designed with a premium dashboard view. It color codes your environment so you instantly see the difference between a healthy machine and a vulnerable one. Take a look at HR Surface 01 at the bottom there. The LAFS age is 12 days, it's synced 4 hours ago. Green. Healthy. Good to go. But check out the top two. They're both flagged as red, but for completely different reasons. This is where correlating that data becomes a total game changer. The script brilliantly distinguishes between a genuine CSP GPO policy conflict, where a device syncs normally with Intune just 2 hours ago, but its lapse timestamp is 45 days stale, versus a device offline scenario, like that sales desktop, where both the Intune sync and the lapse timestamp are sitting dead at 96 days ago. The remediation for the policy conflict is an engineering fix. The remediation for the offline device, well, you're going to have to send someone to go physically find that laptop. Finally, we reach Section 5, the remediation playbook, resolving the conflict safely. Okay, we've identified the silent failures, so let's walk through the exact engineering steps required to remediate your fleet. Just follow this exact sequence. First, verify your Intune settings catalog status. Second, run a GP result/H on the local endpoint to see what legacy rules are lingering. Third, track down that conflicting group policy link scope in your domain. Fourth, pick one path, and for modern management, Microsoft highly recommends standardizing strictly on the Intune CSP. And fifth, explicitly force a policy resync to apply the fix. Now hold up, I need to give you a massive architectural warning here. Do not, I repeat, do not blindly disable or unlink a group policy object you don't fully understand across an entire organizational unit. If you just unlink a broad GPO to quote-unquote fix lapse, you might accidentally strip out critical security baselines, firewall rules, or startup scripts from hundreds of devices. You've got to be precise with this. To handle this safely like an enterprise professional, try these pro tips. Manage these exclusions using exact security group filtering on the GPO, rather than just relying on legacy OU structures. Always test the unlink against a small pilot group first. Keep your Intune and GPO delivery paths cleanly partitioned by security groups so they never intersect. And finally, validate your work by running a GP update/force on the client, followed immediately by an Intune sync. If you stick to that playbook, here's what your environment will look like 24 to 48 hours post-remediation. Look at FinLaptop07 now. It's synced, Intune's the sole authority, it generated a fresh password, the age is down to 1 day, and it flips to a healthy green. Meanwhile, that offline sales desktop remains stubbornly red, which is actually correct, telling us that while our engineering fix worked perfectly, we still need to physically track down that missing hardware. Before we wrap this explainer up, here's one incredibly practical piece of administrative advice. Export this data. Keep the CSV export from every single compliance run you do. Seriously, save this data. Being able to prove your local admin passwords actually rotate is no longer just a nice to have. It's rapidly becoming a mandatory, heavily scrutinized check for internal audits and cyber insurance renewals. You're going to need the receipts to prove your controls actually work. So I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought to chew on for your own enterprise environment. Think about your current dashboard. When was the last time you proved your local admin passwords actually rotated, instead of just assuming they did because a policy said succeeded? Grab these techniques, run the audit, and close that gap. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time as we keep breaking down the complexities of enterprise IT.